Alright guys, hope you're all doing well, hope you're all keeping safe. Before we start, thanks for all the comments, likes and general interaction on my last video. It's very clear to me that most of the community are simply in hibernation, waiting for any tidbit of news to pounce on. I'm in that camp too, and if I can bring you guys any news, however big or small that might be, I will do that. Today I want to talk about a tweet response from Terry Spier at Redstorm about news for the Division 2 and the Division Heartlands, and also I want to talk about the issue of false promises and lack of communication, because once again it appears we've been told one thing and it doesn't look as though it's going to happen. These two topics tie in really well together, which is why I thought it'd be a good idea to bring them both in this one video. Drop a like and subscribe to stay up to date with all of my videos, and let's begin. On Monday I made a video talking about the recent tweet from Yannick, wherein he confirms changes are coming that will affect the entire game, the byproduct being a shift in the PvP experience. For good or for bad, we don't know yet, because the tweet was a very vague one. This came off the back of a tweet from fellow content creator Rogue Gaming asking for any news on changes coming to freshen up the PvP experience. It has been a very long time since anything really changed within PvP. Well, before this, back on August 27th, Rogue Gaming sent a tweet to Terry Spier and Yannick saying the following: with 4 months left on the year, are you guys both on track to realise year 3 content for Division 2 and Heartlands? Silence isn't helping with the game's news. Sooner than later needs to be said for the current progression where you're at on the title. So basically guys, Rogue is saying, or Rogue is asking, that we need confirmation that both the Division 2 Year 3 and Heartlands is on track to release in their respective windows. Not an unreasonable question, and a question that I've asked at least a couple of times before. Terry Spier did actually respond, and this has to be probably the first response I've seen from Terry about any of this stuff. And he said, hey Rogue, as I'm sure you know, Yannick and I aren't the folks responsible for deciding when news about dates and game progress happens. When we have a green light to give status updates, we will. Terry further went on to say, I get antsy for plenty of games and wish for more news all of the time. Okay, so firstly, and I have to ask this question of Rogue Gaming, who I know watches my videos sometimes, do you have superpowers? You must do. I mean, I cannot count how many times a similar question like this to Terry or Yannick has been asked by not just me, but many others, and they've been completely ignored. And here's Rogue getting a response from both. I asked this same question to the Division Community Manager many weeks ago. Still not had a response. I'm still salty. Seriously, Rogue, I need to know how you get these developers to open up. Just drop me a DM on Twitter. Secondly, we don't have an answer yet as to whether either the Division 2 Year 3 content or Heartlands is on track. I would say that due to the silence it should be. Thirdly, it's not the developer's fault. I think we all knew this, to be honest. When it comes to reveals and news, this is generally controlled by the publisher. So here, you know, it's Ubisoft. And there's no doubt in my mind, then, that we're not going to hear anything about the new content until maybe a couple of weeks before it drops, the same as what happened with Warlords, because Ubisoft have a habit of doing that. Now, when I say it's not the developer's fault, I'm not saying that they're absolved of any liability here, and we're going to get to that in a minute, because they absolutely, I still think that communication-wise, they need to do a much better job. But in terms of like news and updates on actual content that we're meant to be getting, it's all controlled by Ubisoft, and unless they say yes, you can talk about it, we're not going to hear about it unless someone slips their tongue, which we've kind of seen a little bit of tidbits here and there, which I've covered before. We know that seasons are probably coming back. We know that exotics are coming and manhunts and stuff, but that's about it. No official communication on anything more than just one new game mode. Now, going back to the lack of replies that I've had to similar questions that I've raised, that Rogue's raised and got responses to, I want to move on to false promises and lack of communication. The last season rerun, End of Watch, starts on September 7th, so in 5 days. and this will run for 3 months, ending early December. This is when I believe they plan to release the new content. Now, back on March 5th, I reported on the article from Massive titled The Road Ahead that confirmed the cadence for the remainder of this year leading up to the new content. Now, let me just remind you guys what it said about the season reruns. This part specifically. On top of the rerunning of seasons, we will continue to support the game with new apparel events and some minor title updates focused on game health. Apparel events and small title updates, you say? Well, where are they? And these aren't my words, guys. These are taken directly from the article released by Ubisoft. I've seen no evidence we'll be getting this stuff in the next 3 months, and will happily eat my own words if we do. But if we don't, it's a little embarrassing, to be honest. And it's these types of false promises that cause so many issues with trusting what the devs have to say, and it feeds directly into the issue the studio has had for so long, and that's lack of or bad communication. Even Massive themselves have come out before and agreed that communication isn't their strong point, and that is something they probably need to work on. I think the last state of the game, they even said that they need to work on their communication, but I'm not seeing any kind of improvement. I hope that we are getting a new apparel event before End of Watch comes to an end, and we get at least one title update, because that would explain why they've not come out and said it's not happening. But I'm pessimistic about that, and I'd wager that we aren't getting this stuff, and that we won't get any official communication apologising for this failure. All in all, guys, Ubisoft are ultimately to blame for the lack of updates and news surrounding the new content. But that's not surprising. They've done it with all of their games. They did it with Warlords of New York. I don't think we heard about any Warlords of New York stuff until about a couple of weeks before, and I think it actually first broke possibly when Summit was released on a gaming store. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we never heard anything until right at the end. It was pretty silent until then, and I'm expecting a similar thing to happen here. It's very rare that developers are given free rein by the publisher to talk, you know, willy-nilly about upcoming content, and it's Ubisoft. It's definitely going to happen here where we don't hear anything, and I expect that we'll probably hear something towards the end of November if the new content is due to release early December. That's if it's on track. I mean, they did say that the new content, the earliest would be early December. The seasons end, and I think they were specifically meant to end at the start of December for the release of the new content. So I don't expect to hear anything until maybe late November. And that's if the content doesn't get put back till next year, which is absolutely a possibility. On top of the silence, promises made months ago have not appeared yet, and there's no indication they will. And I think ultimately that just adds more fuel to the fire. Thanks for watching, guys, and until the next one, Epic out.